SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, we're all set, ready to go. So the legislature, they were called back. They gathered up again down there at the Mississippi State Capitol, downtown Jackson. And please cue the sound to indicate what was accomplished yesterday. Correct. You are correct, my friend. What'd they do down there? Have you ever seen so much squabbling going on, man? This is what I don't get. Maybe is it a function of me expecting the system to work a different way than it does? Perhaps.
Yes.
Okay. Because, before you send stuff up to the governor, might you just find out where he stands on some of these things that you know are going to be controversial? Does that make sense? Hey, Governor, we got this coming up. Before we spend all this time and effort on this,
Well,
how do you feel about this?
Ask.
Okay. Explain.
If you ask a libertarian,
Yeah.
they would likely say no, because they didn't have phones in 1776, so they couldn't just call up the governor. That you need to have the separation of powers or something like that.
I see.
If you ask a Democrat, because it's Republicans, they would probably say no, because it's backdoor dealings. If you ask somebody that isn't all that plugged in, that just wants to see stuff get done and is tired of politicians being politicians and talking out of both sides of their neck, then yeah, you would think a phone call would be pretty simple. Especially considering these people do this job a quarter of a year, a third of a year at most sometimes. They can't be bothered to do anything.
Surely they know that's how the process works. We've been talking about civics instruction in our schools. Maybe we need to have a little primer at the beginning of the session. Can we get the old Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes law? Make that required viewing in the chambers. I'm laughing about it, and look, I know there's lots of other stuff, this part of the sausage making behind the scenes that you and I are not privy to. And then there's this issue of, well, you don't have the supermajority in the Senate anymore, right? And what the Democrats in the Senate say? Tough it out. Too bad, right? Your little squabble, you Republicans, it turns out it came into play. Now, you remember you and I talked about it, that okay, there's been a slight balance of power in that no longer do Republicans have the supermajority in the state Senate. And the main area where that would come into play is, in fact, overriding vetoes. You and I talked about it on the show. It's exactly what happened, right? Exactly what happened. Now, you wouldn't have thought we'd have gotten to that point, but we did. So here we are. And so, unfortunately, or depending on which side of the issue you're on, right? The unfortunate or the use of that to preface my statement here is more about, you mean we came all back for this? That's what's unfortunate. What are the per diems? You and I looked that up not too long ago. Oh, my gosh. But the single purpose of coming back was to override some of these vetoes. Now, again, I just got to point this out. I'm sorry. I just do. That
$157 a day.
Okay. Times the 174, right? Plus the other expenses associated with operating the Capitol when the legislature's in session. Honestly, that's not a big deal at the end of the day. But it is fair to say, I think, that we did have a budget where this year there were the special projects. And these are carve-outs for cities and counties. They've got their lobbyists all over the Capitol. We need some money for this and that and this and that and this and that. And what their hope is that when they get down to the end of the session, that they insert lots of those requests into various appropriations bills and get some money sent home. And, we've talked about this many times from the perspective of the federal government, which, as you know, is running a gigantic deficit, some $1.2 trillion for the first 6 months. They're on a $2.4 trillion annualized run rate. And I've just offered the opinion that we Republicans, conservative Republicans who are concerned about the fiscal health of our nation and our state, we send our delegation away to say, you go up there and be fiscally responsible and cut that spending, but you send all that money back home. That's what we sent you there for. You belly up to the bar, right? You fight for us. I love that. You go up there and fight for that money. I got to have this money. Why do I laugh at that? It seems like an inappropriate term. I want to see him on the floor going at it, Mr. Gus. Jeez. You know what it'd be, Rhino? You take this sign, right, where you're naming some asset after somebody, because there's always that kind of pork that the federal government, no, you have this bridge. No, you don't. You have this road. And that kind of happens on a smaller scale at the state level. But, of course, keep in mind that this is money that comes out of reserves. This is not money that's part of the annual spending of the revenue that we send to the state that then gets appropriated through the various general fund programs. That's education, Medicaid, corrections, the agency complex of government. That's the vast majority of it. And then you've got interest and principal on our debt, which is, last I checked, general fund obligation bonds still sitting at about $5.5 billion. So that did happen, but with respect to what happened yesterday, just nothing. I mean, that's literally what happened, which was nothing. So the lieutenant governor was looking to set the votes to override, but the Democrats in the Senate said, So Senator Hillman Frazier, he's a Democrat, Rhino from Jackson. You know him. He's the one you see always dressed quite smartly with the bow tie. It's kind of his thing. And he said, quote, I've been here since 1975. Can you believe that? He's been there since 75. And I've never seen anything like this. So the Republican-dominated legislature, they said, let's get back at it. That's after they adjourned for just under 2 weeks, and the purpose was to override some of those vetoes handed down by the governor. It's pretty rare, honestly, to override a veto. A veto into itself, you looked that up for us yesterday, that's fairly rare, but overriding one's even more rare, right? And again, you got to have the requisite 2/3 votes in each chamber to override a gubernatorial veto. Same way it works in the United States government as well. So the governor, he kind of went after the lieutenant governor and some other unnamed lawmakers who looked like they were ready to defy him. But he also directed much of his ire towards Senator Hob Bryan. He's the Democratic chairman of the Senate Public Health Committee. And he was author of a bill that the governor vetoed. It was the one we talked about yesterday. And it had to do with this Rural Health Transformation Fund, part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and how that would be appropriated, who would control those funds, and so forth. But nonetheless, that's where we are. Not a whole lot. Yesterday we talked about it being tax day. And, of course, we have an extension here in the state of Mississippi on both our federal and state taxes. But you might be surprised at how much is considered by the Internal Revenue Service of the federal government to be unpaid taxes, also known as the tax gap. We're coming right back.
Just hearing the word IRS.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. I've seen it before.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We've got Wayne Carr, the Southern District Public Service Commissioner of Mississippi. He's coming in. He's calling in, actually, at 11:05. Coming in at 12:05 is Mississippi State Senator Brice Wiggins. He'll give us an update on the legislative session and what happened yesterday. So it turns out there are a lot of folks that don't pay all the taxes they're supposed to, that are legally supposed to, in accordance with current tax law. The gap estimated in 2023, $696 billion. That's a lot. Most of that, individual income taxes, about 75% of it. Now, this is according to the IRS. These are estimates, but there are ways of getting pretty dang close in the ballpark to estimate these figures. And it turns out that if you have a normal situation, normal as in, how about typical? I don't want to call it normal. The typical situation is you're an employee, you work for an employer, you get paid through a payroll system, and the employer is responsible for withholding taxes, remitting that to the IRS, but more importantly, to square up, they remit your income in the form of a W-2 report. Actually, they file quarterly reports, and then they have to match that up with the W-2s that they generate at the end of the year. And you know that. The IRS has got one sitting in your file waiting for your return, and they match that up when you file your return. And if there's a mismatch, you may or may not get contacted because their systems, it turns out, are really old, and they ain't got a lot of people, thank God. And people aren't the way to handle that anyhow. Not with all the modern technology and the methods we have to communicate these days.
In fairness, our overall method of taxation is not the way to run the railroad.
100%.
Nobody seems to want to have that conversation.
No. So you got fewer enforcement staff, and I know a lot of people think that it's those wealthy people that aren't reporting their income. That's actually not true. That's not where that's coming from. It's the massive...
They're the ones that can afford the good CPAs that find all the loopholes for them.
It's totally legitimate. What few loopholes there are, that's actually grossly overblown. But you're right in general, and there are ways they can shift income around with respect to its character in order. That's not actually
That's what
a
people consider a loophole, though.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. It's really not, and it's because this comes up all the time. People say, "Well, why can't we just have a flat tax, pay 10%, blah blah blah, this and that?" And the problem is 10% of what? Because computing income, determining income, there are like thousands of pages of IRS code because the average person thinks, yeah, it's just what comes on my W-2, on my check. Not when you get into all kinds of complex business transactions, investment transactions. It's brutally complicated just to figure out what your income is, just to get to that starting point. But what we have going on is this massive underground economy, cash economy. You know that. And now, it's also true that in a lot of cases, it's inadvertent. People just don't know because it is so dang complicated. I'm talking about people that have sources of income outside of this more typical situation of W-2s from your employer. But, man, I was just shocked to read that the latest estimate is $696 billion. And you know, the other thing is, there are a lot of people that owe money that just don't pay it. That's another big one. And they don't have the enforcement staff to go run people down. Now, they've got
J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio that said recently, unless you're in it for over $1.5 million, the government's not even going to worry about it.
That's exactly right. See, it's considered immaterial. It's the materiality concept of accounting. It's considered immaterial. And don't think people don't know that. It's kind of like the crooks in California. Remember when they decriminalized theft below $900 and they were going into the stores with calculators while they were just helping themselves to the product and merchandise on the shelves. Okay, $8.99, let's go.
And some of the most schadenfreude you could possibly experience was watching the videos from Orange County where they'd try to do that, and they'd get picked up in Orange County, and Orange County's like, we don't play that game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Orange County is a little different. It's kind of a Republican enclave in the midst of all the crazy liberals. And I've been there many times, and it's more like it is here.
You got people in handcuffs in the back of the paddy wagon, but it was $700.
Right.
Yeah, you stole $700. You're going in.
That's so right. So that's a big bunch of money, though, man. Individual income taxes, and then behind that's employment and corporate taxes. But individual income taxes, about 77% of the total. Just mind-boggling amount, $696 billion. So you know what that begs, I just start thinking about it, is some way to identify these situations using modern technology. I'm always thinking about that. And now they do have some tools. If you don't pay, they can garnish your wages. You can get a lien filed, a collection filed on your credit report. And that's not a problem unless you're out seeking credit. And a lot of the people that do this aren't seeking credit, so it doesn't affect them. They don't care if they have a 400 credit score because they got IRS collections and they probably have other collections and liens on their credit report as well. But that's kind of what's going on there. I just thought that was interesting given this is the day after tax day. And in the meantime, you got New York City up there and the state of New York. They're like celebrating at this prospect of increasing taxes on second homes in the state of New York. This is a big one that's come up. And, they're doing backflips on that one. Really incredible. You know our old buddy, I say that with tongue-in-cheek, James Tallarico. He the Democrat candidate for the United States Senate in the Lone Star State of Texas. And they just had reports of campaign fundraising. This guy, I've warned about this guy, Rhino. He hauled in $27 million in a quarter. That's the most ever by a candidate for United States Senate. The most ever. Oh, John Cornyn, the incumbent, 1.7. Now, Cornyn's been there forever. He's, of course, embattled in a runoff campaign against the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton. But is he trailing him? Just a little bit. 1.7 million versus Tallarico's 27 million. I'm telling you, before this race is over with, I'm talking about the general election, whoever wins the runoff in the next month in Texas on the Republican side is going to face this Tallarico dude. They're going to spend $200 million in a general election for a U.S. Senate seat. That's insane. But that's exactly where we're headed.
Because the optics of electing a blue senator in red Texas is worth that much to the Democrat Party.
That is completely right. That is 100% right.
Change in the balance of power is not worth that much money. It's all optics for them at that point.
Yeah, I think they'll celebrate that, and I think they believe that could be a springboard, if you will, for future races in states where a Republican holds seats, particularly in the United States Senate. But this is the largest quarterly sum raised ever by a candidate. That's just unbelievable to comprehend. And I'm warning about this guy, man. He's a left-wing loon. Make no mistake. I mean, he's the classic definition of a
bleeding heart, blowhard.
Yeah, of a wolf in sheep's clothing. His views and values are outrageous. But you don't look at him and hear him and see that. And, of course, he likes to really focus on taxing those billionaires. That's his. He usually starts his speeches with that. And he likes to run around saying the divide is not between the left and the right in this country. It's between the billionaires and the rest of us.
Like the good little Marxist he is.
Exactly right. We got to keep an eye on this guy, though, man. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
On the corner, out in the street, playing the ball for the plane, bringing it up happy feet. Down on the corner, out in the street, playing the ball for the plane, bringing it up happy feet. Down on the corner, out in the street, playing the ball for the plane, bringing it up happy feet. Down on the corner, out in the street, playing the ball for the plane.
From the Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Love is but a song we sing, feels the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us. So, again, just looking at this guy, Tallarico. I caught a video that he published yesterday, and he's just all about how the billionaires and the rich people they're writing off. Well, it's expenses. Why do they act like that? This idea of reducing your revenue for the amount you paid in the form of expenses is some sort of loophole. Why do they think that? So do they believe we should, hear me out here, should we tax top line revenue in a company? Not their net income, their taxable net income? Is that what they want?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then they'd all be bankrupt.
I didn't say they were smart.
And guess what? How many employees bankrupt companies have?
Usually zero.
Right. How can they be so stupid?
Because they live in La La Land.
Oh my gosh! And this guy puts this video out there, and it's all about that. It's all about. It was yesterday. It was intentional. Oh yeah, the billionaires, they're not. He basically also says he launches the video, Rhino. He says, "You probably noticed that you paid more on your taxes." No, you didn't. He says the only people he starts the video off by saying the only people in America that paid lower taxes yesterday, referring to tax day, of course, were the billionaires. That what happened with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act only extended a favorable tax environment to rich people. Well, here's one of the problems. When 49% of the households in the country don't pay any income taxes, it's the old Jethro Bodine. I know I've said this before on the show. It's that naught times naught equal naught. Like you paid zero. How much more of a reduction do you want than zero? You know what they'll say? Oh, the IRS just needs to send me some money. And you know what? We do. That's part of the problem. We've cronied up the dang IRS code. They talk about the loopholes for the billionaires. What about the refundable tax credits, which means all you got to do is work a little bit, and we're going to send you money for child care and for the fact that you have children or for earning some income. We're just going to send you a check, whether you owed any taxes or not. In other words, you're a net recipient from Uncle Sam, not a net payor. It's never enough, though. And that's the other thing we got to point out. It's not like, oh, yeah, if we could just get more money to the Treasury, we could start whittling away at that deficit and debt. That's never crossed their mind. It's always, we could give you free health care and free this and free community college, free. Except they're not telling you that, yeah, it's a handful of people that are paying for all that. And you deem that as equitable, as fair. You're just one big, you want the federal government to be one big redistribution apparatus while you skim off the top. That's essentially what their plan is.
Because they'll make sure they're redistributed more.
There's no doubt about it. Unbelievable. So there was another article. I'm just into this because yesterday was tax day, and it just made me start thinking about it. And it's talking about this comes up all the time. You know this, Rhino. The billionaires who buy yachts and jets, and they love to pick on old Jeff Bezos because he's got like a $500 million boat or something like that. And they're mad about the fact that we reinstated 100% bonus depreciation. And so some of these assets for business use that allow the deduction of the total amount invested in the year invested to reduce your tax bite. They don't tell you that, well, they're going to get to write that off over a period of year under the old tax law, but because our law allows you to write it off with this immediate expensing feature of the Trump tax cuts, which, by the way, was a concept that started back in the 70s. It's called the investment tax credit. And then it was reinstated. It expired in the 80s and then reinstated by Barack Obama. They don't want to tell you that, though, do they? Barack Obama, because he saw that, imagine this, as a way to stimulate the economy after the financial crash of 2008. Turns out he was right. So that expired, and all Trump did was reinstate it. He revived it, and then it expired. And then we just extended it again. And I guarantee you that without that, the huge GDP that we had, growth last year, significant, and just a positive economic outcome and performance we had, would not have happened without that. Absolutely no way, no how would it have happened without that. And some of the reshoring of manufacturing that other presidents have attempted, and this president is actually achieving, falling short, I would say, of projections, but still it's happening. And the manufacturers will tell you, yeah, because we can write off the factory in the year of investment. And the left's all bummed out about that. It's just not right. These billionaires could write that off. So let me just ask these people this, Rhino. Help me out here. Who makes the jets and the boats?
Usually it's not the billionaires.
Right. Correct. Do they get paid for doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say usually because I'm fairly certain Howard Hughes was a billionaire and he had a pretty big hand in
That's
making
true.
planes and boats.
That's true. And spaceships as well, right? Satellites at least.
He was also wealthy enough to basically own an entire Las Vegas hotel he lived in, and if he missed something on TV, he would call up the TV station and have them rewind it.
Yep.
So he's kind of an outlier.
That's true. But I don't know why this is so hard to understand.
Because they're willfully ignorant.
Do you think the people who they're trying to appeal to, who are making the boats and the planes, are they mad at the people who buy those from them? Probably not. It really is. It's circular logic at best, and it's crazy, and it's kind of sad. But that's absolutely what they think. Meanwhile, out in California, they have seen fit, of course, to engineer their economy through increasing the minimum wage. In particular, in Los Angeles, remember that's $30 an hour for airport and hotel workers. $30 an hour. So guess what the hotel industry says? We can't make it on that. We can't pay people for those jobs that sort of money and be a viable enterprise because of what we'd have to charge. I mean, I know it's a second order thinking that's just over their head. What they'd have to charge people to stay in the hotel. Doesn't work. And they're pushing back on it. Utterly unaffordable is what one hotelier in Los Angeles said, referring to the $30 hotel worker minimum wage. They're struggling to keep up with it. No joke. Idiots. Here at home, by the way, I've had a couple of folks that have asked me about increasing pay for our state troopers. There's been a recent report indicating that our state troopers are, I believe, the lowest paid on a nominal basis in the country. I haven't done the math to see if when adjusted for the cost of living, that is still the case. It certainly could be. And yeah, I think our state troopers need a raise. We need to see fit to do that. But I just got to bring this up again. And I'm going to keep beating the drum. Medicaid. I can't say it enough. Medicaid is the reason the teacher pay raise fell short of the initial commitments at the front of the session. Because Medicaid showed up and said, we need a whole lot more money than you gave us last year to make it work. And though the legislature did not appropriate the amount requested, they're probably going to end up spending that much to be in compliance with the federal requirements of the program, which means that next year we're going to be facing the same situation, a deficit appropriation to cover last year, just like they did this year. What was it, $50 million or something like that? And it ain't going away. They're going to show up next year. I'm glad to see the president finally rip the Band-Aid off as he did a couple of weeks ago. Remember that? We talked about it. Said, you know what? This Medicare, this health care, this daycare, this Medicaid, we can't keep paying for that. We're going to have to send that to the states. We're fighting a war, and we got a country to defend. He's right. I submit that's a core function of government. Coming right back.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The sun could never fall away. The bliss
The great Eric Clapton. I happen to think that tune, Rhino, really showcases his vocal skills. I mean, we already know that maybe one of the best, if not the best, guitarist ever. Of course, that's a very subjective assessment, but
To the point that he would even argue against it.
it's exactly right. He's pretty good, though, right? But he's also pretty good with the voice as well. I just thought that was really good because he shows his range in that particular program. So I caught Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He had a brief presser this morning. And he warned the Iranian regime to, quote, choose wisely or deal with the United States. Quote, we are locked and loaded and prepared to strike Iran's energy infrastructure. Now, maybe we're playing 3D chess here. I hope so. I really do. He says, this is how he launched the press conference this morning. We'll start with a message to Iran's military leadership. We're watching you. Our capabilities are not the same, our military and yours. Remember, this is not a fair fight, and we know what military assets you are moving and where you are moving them to while you are digging out. And that ain't no lie, is it? That's not a lie. That's not a bluff, by the way, which is exactly what you're doing, digging out of a bombed out and devastated range of facilities. We are only getting stronger. You are digging out your remaining launchers and missiles. This is more, of course, it's not like they don't know that. This is more, of course, a message to the world, and I have no doubt to our foes across the Pacific there in China. Don't you think? I think it's a strong message. And Russia, no doubt about it. He says, you can dig out for now, but you can't reconstitute, but we can. He's 100% right. He says if Iran chooses poorly, they will have a blockade and bombs dropping on infrastructure, power, and energy. And I did read that it is true, some of the tankers made their way to ports over here, and they're filling up. So now, mind you, like we've said before, we don't produce enough oil to satisfy our daily demand. We produce more than enough total energy. That's what's meant by energy independence. We're not oil independent. We could be. It's not that we don't have the oil beneath our feet. But heck, when you got the likes of goofy Joe Biden said, we're going to kill the fossil fuels industry. Guess what? If you're in the fossil fuels industry and the president of the United States says that, you're not likely to make investments in extracting oil, because you got the commander-in-chief saying, although it pains me to even say that about Joe Biden, maybe one of the least worthy in history of that particular title. But he says we're going to shut it down. Well, okay, then they're not going to make any investments. The point is we're catching up now. So the president comes in, President Trump, and he reverses all those goofy orders that were designed to significantly restrict oil and gas production in this country, to appease the left-wing lunatics in his party. Seems like there's more of them, though, does there not these days? It used to be, oh, that's the crazy wacko wing. Like, that's the whole damn party now, which is why I think the number of independents in this country has grown, right? We talked about that not long ago. Now exceed those that define themselves as one of the major parties. That's the biggest ilk of voters. So elections will be won and lost based on who can pull them over. But now we are seeing some additional investments, but we are, in fact, depleting our inventories of oil and refined fuels as well. So Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, he also issued, you could call it a warning, I guess, where he said, hey, be prepared for gas to stay at its current elevated price throughout the summer. That was his recent statement. That's the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. So this was yesterday. And I appreciate, honestly, his honesty here. I think he's right. It's hard to imagine that there'd be a pullback in the price of oil per barrel, sitting around $92 a barrel right now. Think about where it was before this war started. It was in the low 60s range. So, man, we're at 40% higher. He did not think that prices would drop below $3 a gallon until late in the year. That's what he told reporters yesterday. We certainly shall see. We're going to take a break right now for Fox News and SuperTalk News. It's Southern District Public Service Commissioner Wayne Carr next.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
It's our pleasure to welcome Wayne Carr. He is the Southern District Public Service Commissioner. Hey, Mr. Commissioner, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good seeing you. Thank you for having me on today.
You bet. So give us a brief update from your district with respect to the Public Service Commission. What's going on?
There's a lot of growth. Our state in South Mississippi is growing tremendously. We have 2 huge manufacturings coming online. We're in the process of bringing some equipment in Stone County, Carpenter Pole and Pile, and then we have Gulf Wax, and we have gas pipeline expansion in those areas. There's tremendous growth, a lot of activity.
Well, that's good. So are we able to accommodate their needs from a utility services perspective?
Yes, sir. We've done some gas pipeline extensions to those 2 entities, and there's one also in Stone County. They're wanting some more gas, too, so we're in the process of getting that all satisfied for those new customers.
Okay. What are you hearing from utility companies with respect to this significant boost in the price of oil, price of gas, of course, as a result of the Iranian conflict? Are they telling you anything about that? What are you hearing?
Yes, sir. The forestry industry, when you go from $3 to $5 on a gallon of diesel, it hurts the back pocket. And so they're managing now. We do see some indication that fuel prices may be coming down.
Okay.
I'm hopeful for that. We just see what the president does. He's a great chess player.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We were just talking about that. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had a press conference this morning, and he issued pretty stern warnings to the Iranian regime that if they don't act right, that the bombs are going to start dropping again. So he says on their energy infrastructure, which of course would probably further disrupt the flow of oil in the country and would boost prices even further. So explain to the folks how that works, Commissioner, that the power companies, they have some latitude without seeking authorization from the PSC to adjust prices based on the price of fuel, do they not?
Yes, sir. But then at the end of the day, they still have to come back to us and let's have a discussion about it before we can, make sure it's prudent. We have some oversight on that.
Okay. So it may not be affecting you as much in your district, but of course here in central Mississippi, you got your colleague DeKeither Stamps that we've talked to several times. We've got these big hyperscale data center facilities that are standing up right now. And, of course, Entergy is busy building out significant additional generation capacity as well as transmission capacity to accommodate these projects. But you guys do work together and talk about that. Any thoughts there? They just had a big announcement again last week.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a huge investment that Entergy's making into that industry. I think that industry is we haven't got up to speed yet. I'm real curious of where we're heading in that industry.
Okay.
Not only just from the electricity side, but also from the infrastructure around those facilities. It's interesting in what's going to happen. A lot of growth.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What are you hearing just from a national perspective with respect to our demand for energy and just the future of how that will be delivered? We saw the president earlier this week. He's ordered some of the agencies at the federal level to work together to figure out how to build nuclear power plants on the moon.
Yes. You know, one of the things that interests me is Elon Musk and his strategy as far as data centers.
Yep.
He's wanting to put them up into space where we can have 24/7, power, plus we don't need all the cooling.
Yep.
And, it's interesting to his plan and his vision for the data centers. Yeah,
in fact, and there's some discussions by some companies about building data centers underwater as well, because it's a lot cooler under there. That's just like building them in outer space. That's a complicated undertaking, but we got a lot of smart people in the country that could probably figure that out.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Pretty neat. So you guys are having a job fair pretty soon, next week, right, on the coast. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. That's part of the state leadership and the governors, and their Power Play initiative.
Yep.
It's a huge. We're real excited about this job fair today. I'm very happy that this all started some years back with the governor and the leadership there in the House and the Senate promoting education. And this is a direct result of the hard work that our leadership has done, and also our school teachers that took that task, at hand and moved forward with it.
Yeah.
So we have the most educated generation there has ever been right now, and we just need to assist them and keep these great minds at home and provide a job for them.
Well, and that's good news. So is this something that PSC has always done, or is this kind of a new thing you guys are starting to focus on?
Well, this is something that we've been pushing as far as a PSC, especially myself being a construction background.
Yeah.
You don't see any new faces in the supply houses, and that's always been a concern.
Yeah.
Other people that's in that industry.
Makes total sense. The legislative session, anything in particular that you guys were working with our legislative leadership about that the PSC needed in particular this year?
Well, the leadership there in the Senate and the House with the rural water, I think we're heading in the right direction on that.
Yeah.
Also with the wind generation, we didn't get exactly what we needed there, but there's always next year. We're trying to work through that, and where everybody, it's a win-win deal.
Okay. All right. Well, because that seems to be something that a lot of people are certainly in favor of, and right here where we are in the city of Jackson, the whole water thing is such a huge deal, and it looks like we're going to have a water board. Yeah.
Well, in the United States, water is a big issue. It's coming to the forefront now. When we got to be, that's life. Water is part of life, and we cannot be without good drinkable water. We got to be good stewards of that
the
water.
Resource. Yep. Well, I hear you, and I know particularly in the West, the western part of the country is absolutely parched and has been under a drought. Although that seems like that improved a little bit back in the fall. I think lots of rain fell in California and the Mountain West, unusual, and I think they had decent snow that they rely on as well for their water supply. Probably not as big an issue here, although we are below annual rainfall at this point during the year.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's pretty dry, even though we got pretty good 2 or 3 inches here in Harrison County last week, but we're still dry. We're still You can see it in the lakes and in the ponds that we have around the community.
Yeah. So I also saw some reports from the coast about the shrimpers really struggling with the price of diesel, and I know that's not necessarily your direct purview there, but what are you hearing down there on that?
Well, the interesting that we talked about oil in the beginning of this conversation. You know, at Chevron in Jackson County, Pascagoula area, that facility is processing and with the oil that's coming in from Venezuela.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that's happening right here in our home, community here, that we're processing oil that's coming from Venezuela. That was the first power play that our president did.
Yeah.
Which I just think is a genius move that he did there.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So we're hearing reports about tankers headed into our ports to fill up and get that distributed, but also good news in that they're carrying crude oil from Venezuela to our refineries there on the coast for further refining into usable fuel.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All good stuff. Wayne Carr, Southern District Public Service Commissioner, has been our guest. Appreciate it, Mr. Commissioner, for coming on today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So the New York Post and their covers, that's what they're known for. They're so good. And today they got Kathy Hochul, the governor of the Empire State of New York. They've got her on the cover, and she's got her smart pantsuit on, of course. And behind her is the mayor of New York with his old smirky smile, Zoran Mondami. And so the big, bold letters that they're known for that are always shadowed as well. No new taxes. That's Hochul in January. Hochul today, no, comma, new taxes. So good. And then yesterday, I missed this one yesterday. It's old Eric Swalwell on the front, and it's monster in the house. That's the headline. More women accuse Representative Swalwell of rape, drugging, and assault. What a perv that guy is. Was Jimmy Fallon great on that yesterday? He thinks there's more, is what he indicated. And I think he's right.
Body language experts are convinced Ruben Gallego is caught up in all this.
Interesting.
Because he was buddy-buddy with Swalwell.
He was.
Went everywhere with him. And one of the videos of Swalwell with a sex worker has a guy that looks shockingly like Ruben Gallego's profile.
Oh, man. It does seem like there's an outsized number of these folks that seem to believe they can have their way with the fairer sex with impunity.
To the point that there's a whole congressional slush fund for it.
Unbelievable. That's just totally unbelievable. I mean, you talk about the stuff that gets people mad and worked up about politics, and more of this rules for thee and not for me stuff just makes them crazy. I agree, man. I really do, and it's shouldn't be that way. But again, hey, Rhino, maybe that's why so much money is invested in these political races, because first you get them in and they have this power, newfound power, as a member of one of these august institutions. But then, of course, they can wink, wink, take care of you on stuff you have going on as well. Incredible. So I thought it was so cool to see the president instructing a couple of agencies, I think there were at least 2 involved, in seriously building a nuclear power plant on the moon. But also, he wants NASA to fast-track nuclear-powered spaceships. He wants interplanetary travel by 2028. That's a pretty aggressive schedule. So I didn't know. We're in the process right now, the United States, of developing a nuclear-powered spaceship. That's pretty cool. This is what NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman told the Washington Times. They had an interview with him earlier this week. He spoke to the Times during the Space Symposium 2026 program. That was a conference. Isn't it kind of neat that we're talking about the space economy? I just think that's neat. It's just further proof that we ain't done innovating. There's still a lot more runway.
And a lot of people are going to make a lot of money when SpaceX goes public.
And, man, the Democrats are going to flip freaking out, aren't they? Next thing they'll be calling for, let's ban space travel. Just like they want to do with data centers. Again, not because of concerns, environmental concerns, because people that are involved might actually get rich. Can't have that. No, no, no.
Latest projected market cap by the end of the year, which is crazy considering the IPO scheduled for like midsummer.
Yep.
Projected market cap for SpaceX by the end of the year is $2 trillion.
Going public to $2 trillion. How long did it take Apple to be the first to hit the $1 trillion mark?
Well, supposedly they're going public at 1.5.
Gosh.
It's believed within the first week it'll be 1 3/4, and by the end of the year, 2.
So they're going to open up with a market cap of 1.5.
Yeah.
Unfathomable. But that is so cool. I love it. That's awesome. So that would have to put Musk at that trillionaire status, right? I would think, depending on how the other companies in his portfolio perform. But Tesla actually is having a pretty good run. It's not back to its high, but it's had some breakthroughs and some announcements, and they're working on some chips. You've seen that as well for their autonomous vehicle plans. He's betting the whole dang transportation arm of his conglomerate enterprise on that. I still think that we're 10 years away from having a large number of autonomous vehicles on the road. I can't wait. I think it's cool. I told you when I was in Vegas last August, I took a spin. They were doing little test rides. Can't say test drive because you're not driving. You're just sitting in the driver's seat, and it's handling all of the navigation. That was really cool. Just push a couple buttons on the screen that looks kind of like an iPad. I want to go there, and off it goes. And that's it. You just sit back and watch. Gets in the lanes. Actually had to make a U-turn at the hotel I was at there to get in the traffic. It did that expertly, and then shifted up to the red light there, put the blinker on, and when the green arrow displayed, took that left turn, and even had to stop, put the blinker on, and dodge a parked vehicle in the right lane in Vegas, and went around it, entered the parking lot of the restaurant that I selected to drive to for the test ride, and it got in there, and then it displays a screen and shows an overhead view, if you will, of the parking lot, and you select the parking spot you want, and it backed into it perfectly. I mean, perfect amount of space on each side between the lines. And then we started over and said, okay, let's go back. And it got in line, did the whole thing over. I mean, that's available today. And we're just getting started with this stuff. I think it's fantastic. But this new technology of nuclear-powered spacecraft could enable much deeper space missions because you'd have sufficient propulsion and power generation to get to a further away, distant destination. That's pretty cool. They also, they're talking about making propellant on Mars so they could have enough to get there and then make it on Mars to get back.
Instead of carrying it with you.
Right, exactly.
Because with the nuclear, I think it's called the space reactor is what they're working on.
Okay.
It's not it's not a nuclear power plant on a rocket ship that's allowing it to leave Earth's gravity. This is for use in space in microgravity as a constant propulsion.
Okay.
So if you think of the way a rocket leaves Earth's orbit as like a fire hose from a fire truck in the volume it's outputting, the space reactor would be more like a squirt gun that's constantly pushing, but because you're in microgravity with no friction, you're constantly building speed.
That's cool.
So it's prolonged thrust at a higher efficiency than burning fuel.
I just think that's so cool. I really do.
And it's similar to the concepts we've seen in years past of like the solar sails.
Yeah.
You might have seen 3D mock-ups of that in the last 2 decades because that was considered a concept for deep space transportation and exploration. But that's when you run into the whole problem we talked about yesterday with the power of the sun the farther you get away from it. Like we said yesterday, if you get 1 kilowatt hour of power from the sun on Earth, on Mars, because of its distance from the sun, you're getting less than half of a kilowatt hour.
That makes sense.
So if you have a solar sail grabbing solar particles and using the solar wind, that solar wind is weaker and weaker the farther away from the sun you go.
Yeah, I get it. But again, American ingenuity and its might, its prowess on full display is so cool. Nobody else is even close. Like the president likes to say, like nobody's ever seen before, right? Right. By the way, he's traveling around the country today, it being tax day, promoting his One Big Beautiful Bill Act and no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, going to Vegas, where you got a lot of tipped workers that are really enjoying that provision. And again, it's a deduction. It's an above-the-line deduction, which simply means you can reduce your gross revenue by the amount of tip income earned up to $25,000. At $150,000 of gross income, it starts to phase out for an individual. But that's still pretty dang good. We're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Don't forget, it's Senator Brice Wiggins at 12:05.
From this
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Well, I did not think a girl could be so rude. And I'm never going back to my old you did before. Living like a gypsy queen.
Welcome back, everyone. That's on the all-hit request line. I was the requester there. Appreciate that, Rhino. Little Steely Dan, My Old School. 1973, man. I kind of think they were ahead of their time a little bit. Pretty creative, the way they blended all the various instruments and lyrics and melodies, and great lyrics as well. California tumbles into the sea. That'll be the day I go back to Annandale. And who would have thought to insert oleanders in a psalm? Those, of course, flowers, big shrubs. They're common. You see them in Louisiana a lot, down in New Orleans in particular, in the neutral grounds. That's what they call them down there. The medians, I'm sorry. I grew up in a house of a native New Orleanian, and my father referred to it as the neutral grounds, which is what they call it, by the way. The boulevards with the medians across the city of New Orleans. But my parents always said they were poisonous, the flowers themselves. You ever heard that? I don't know. Maybe that's just old Louisiana wives' tales. But that always warned me when I was a kid. Stay away from the oleanders. Okay. Whenever we were traveling down there. You're looking it up. What does it say?
A single leaf can be lethal to a child eating it, although mortality is generally very low in humans.
Okay. Well, so it is poisonous. And I was a child, so that makes sense. I'm sure it was passed on to them by, their parents.
Oleandrin is a very potent cardiac glycoside.
I didn't know that. All right. So they're beautiful, and they're different colors of them as well when they're blooming. Pink, blue, white, I think. Red. Who would have thought to put that in a song? Oleanders, that's pretty creative. You'll have to agree. We are back with you, of course. The president just announced that Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a 10-day ceasefire. How about that? The markets today, by the way, they're resting a little bit, though the bull's in charge. The NASDAQ up 92 points. And the Dow, last I checked, was up as well. Crude oil, though, I'm not sure why. It's up $2.66, $93.95. So it's hanging around in that area, which means gas is going to stay elevated at about where it is. Yeah, the Dow up $81 right now. So the city of Detroit, which at one time was America's, as I recall, Rhino, when I was in school, we studied the nation's largest city. I want to say it was the 5th largest in the country back in the day. I seem to recall it was always New York, L.A., Chicago, Philadelphia. I can't remember who was number 4. I just remember Detroit being in that mix of the top 5.
Yeah, it was 4th largest in 1920 and remained the 5th largest as late as the 1950 census.
Okay. All right. So I was in school in the 60s, so I'm not far removed from that at that point in elementary school. But it, of course, has been, oh boy, it's a mere shadow of itself these days. The result of lots of businesses leaving, shuttering, heading overseas. Unions basically broke them. And, of course, you can't ignore bad government as part of that as well. So that it's again, a mere figment of what it once was. But it turns out there's an effort in Detroit to revitalize the Motor City. That's a good thing. And the business leaders are working with government. That's the way it gets done, man, to attract some businesses and grow the economy. In its heyday, man, it was something. And also, Rhino, I have some friends that live around there, the suburban Detroit, because it's like a lot of major cities. The actual inner city itself, devastated. But, the suburbs are still pretty strong. And there are a lot of great neighborhoods, subdivisions, residential developments in small communities around that area. I knew some guys in the IT industry back in those days. And there's a bunch of industry, as you can imagine, in Michigan. And one of my friends, his big customer was Steelcase. Have you ever heard of those guys before? They make high-end office furniture. Maybe Kalamazoo, Michigan, or somewhere in that area is where Steelcase was located. And back in their heyday in the 80s and 90s, they were, of course, consuming lots of IT. And my buddy took care of them. Steelcase. Big outfit. They're still around, aren't they? Big company.
Yeah, headquartered in Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids, okay. Not far. But that's an example of, just the suburban areas that are still thriving. The inner city, of course, left for naught. I want to say that it was after Obama got elected. I don't know if you remember this episode or not, but there was a city council meeting. I think it was Detroit. And Detroit was struggling. And there was a lady there on the city council that was mad because the federal government, once Barack Obama took office, wasn't just piping a bunch of money into there. And she says, they got to bring home the bacon. We got him elected. I'll never forget that. It's exactly what we've said on the program so many times. This is why we got $39 trillion in debt, because you expect in return for supporting him, endorsing him, promoting him, they're just going to send you a bunch of money. Oh, my gosh, incredible. And she referred to, do you remember the longtime African-American mayor of Atlanta? His name escapes me. Andrew something or another maybe, and how he was able to swindle a bunch of money out of Bill Clinton. And she referred to that.
Andrew Young?
I think that was it. Yeah, exactly. And she referred to that like, he's got to bring home the bacon. Again, it's just what's so disgusting about politics. And speaking of which, the Democrats are going crazy about the House going in. This was posted by them yesterday, talking about the Mississippi Democratic Party. And they're mad because the Republicans didn't perform to their liking when they got back under the dome there. And they say Governor Tate Reeves has vetoed more legislation than any governor in modern history, including bipartisan bills supported by both. And because they put the state's purse strings further out of reach, let's call it what it is. This is some AI-generated crap here, of course. He confuses bullying with leadership. He confuses stubbornness with strength. He confuses political theater with results. And so they're all mad because they say that he vetoed policies like free school meals and Medicaid expansion as government handouts. Well, they are. While approving some of the largest corporate tax breaks. Those are mutually exclusive. Get that through your dang heads, people. There's no such thing as a tax break when you're allowing people to keep the money they legitimately, rightfully own and earned. That's not a tax break. It's a tax break when you send money to the government. It's quite the opposite. I get fired up about that. I'm so tired of tax breaks. Again, that makes the assumption, as we said before, that 100% of all the income earned starts with the ownership of the government. And whatever they let you keep, it's just out of their feelings of charity and altruism. He handed out multi-million-dollar incentives to out-of-state data center corporations that Mississippians don't want. They don't? Need we go through the analysis of the benefit produced? Because we just had a board meeting at Madison County Economic Development Authority. Can't say everything. Some of that was in executive session. Let's just say that with respect to the ad valorem taxes, which all remain local, school districts, counties, cities, ahead of schedule, ahead of projections. And that's a good thing. So we got the reports on that today. Because there are already 5 buildings online, up and running, in production, guess who's getting involved? This is the way it works. The tax assessor for the county. And so they're going through the exercise of assessing the value of both the real property and the personal property. So they can send them a bill. It's going to be a lot that's going to the school districts, to the county, to the city. That's a good thing. Do they not get that? These are the people that always complain about school funding. Coming right back.
Poly up of Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Let's see, what do we got going on? We got some stuff to pass on to you today. Post Malone Jelly Roll ticket giveaway presented by Legacy GMC and Laurel. Two music giants, Post Malone and Jelly Roll, will be making a stop at Vaught Hemingway Stadium on the Ole Miss campus on Friday, June 5th. Joining them in Oxford will be country music singer Carter Faith. Go to supertalk.fm to find a registration location near you. This giveaway is brought to you by Legacy GMC in Laurel. Do we have some tickets to give away?
Oh, yeah.
For later on the program, we'll do that. That's for Chicago. They're coming to Brandon on May the 1st. You don't want to miss that. Rhino will get that for us later on. And don't forget, as always, we're in the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about or planning for a retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. Continuing on, Sports Talk Mississippi. They're going to be at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia next Wednesday. They'll be there for the Celebration of Champions, honoring an incredible year of successes for Northwest Community College. Mississippi is blessed with a fantastic group of community colleges that excel in and out of the classroom. Let's check out the C Spire text line. I haven't been ignoring it, just been kind of busy with stuff today. Let's see. Rhino is killing it today with the music. I agree. That's John from Hardeman County, Tennessee. Ricky in Aberdeen says Troy, Michigan is beautiful. Michigan's actually a beautiful state. There's some fantastic golf courses up in Michigan as well. But you're right, Ricky, no doubt. That's all well and good in Vegas, but they need to try that thing out like Jackson, Baton Rouge, or New Orleans. What are we talking about on that one, Rhino? What were we discussing?
The self-driving car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there might be a little bit more of a problem given the other traffic, right? Could be a problem. But now look, the self-driving cars right now pretty much confined to road systems that are more appropriate as we're in this infancy phase of this technology. But as time progresses, there's no doubt more of our transportation infrastructure will be outfitted with the necessary technology and accommodations to facilitate self-driving vehicles, AVs, no doubt about it. In 20 years, it will be frowned upon to drive yourself. How dare you put everyone on the road in such danger? You know, that's on the C Spire text line. I actually have said as a theory that I think in 20 years, in many parts of the country, it will be illegal for humans to drive vehicles. I know that's not popular.
Probably Maine and Oregon first.
Could be.
If you can't fuel your own car and you can't have billboards, then you can't drive your own car.
That's true. That's right. Fill as in they don't allow self-service. Maybe the last state, because I know New Jersey just did away with that not too long ago. When I was working up there in the 90s, that was one of the first things I noticed. Like, I get out to fill my tank, and man, the uniform-clad gas station attendant swiftly told me to get my butt in the car. You don't cross the Unions up in New Jersey. You end up in the bottom of the water somewhere. wear.
Concrete shoes.
Exactly. Yes, sir. I got the car, and you're paying a premium for the premium. No doubt about it. Oh, man. DUIs are big revenue for law enforcement. They may not like autonomous, says Gary in Carrollton. It's a great point, Gary, because you know this, Rhino, the insurance companies that insure vehicles and drivers of vehicles, they're anticipating this. They know this. They generate a lot of revenue because we're bad at driving and we have accidents. And unfortunately, we also have lots of crashes where people are injured or even die. And it is expected to all but eliminate all of that, as a matter of fact. So you got machine communication going on as well. But I think it's incredible.
They'll still get their income. It'll just be, instead of, oh, you're driving under the influence, it'll be, oh, you have an open container?
Yeah, that's right.
Because you get in the back seat and you're thinking, oh, it's fine, I don't have to drive.
Talking about taxes, Chris from Pastor Christian says, I made really good money last year. My tax bracket was 6%. So I assume you mean, Chris, your effective tax rate was 6%? If you took your gross income and multiplied it by 6%, that's the amount of taxes you owe. I always very happy with that. Gotcha. People who complain about people who have more money or a bigger house or nice cars or successful businesses don't realize what it takes to get there. They've never had to sacrifice. They never worked more than 8 hours if they worked at all. They've never had to figure out where their next time's coming from so they can make a business work. Amen to that. That's on the C Spire text line, the 901. I 100% understand and have lived that dream and that nightmare, because that's what it is. Fox News, SuperTalk News, and then Senator Brice Wiggins.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of MidDays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
We welcome now Senator Brice Wiggins. He represents District 52, serves as the chair of the Senate Judiciary A Committee. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I like that Journey in the background.
Yeah,
I was rocking to that. That was probably the second concert I ever went to down in the Mississippi Coast Coliseum.
Really?
Back in the day.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Telling my age, but
Yeah,
that was the fun times.
My all-time favorite.
Journey?
Course. Yeah, I'm a big Journey guy. Everybody knows me, knows that. I've been to see him many times, and of course we launched our 3 hours with Journey tunes of my choosing. So that's
okay.
part of the way the
I'm sorry I missed that. I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah.
But
and I saw them on the coast when they came. Was it last year or 24? I can't remember. I think it was last year.
Yeah.
They came. First.
Well, do you know the
concert
name
the
of the lead singer of Journey now? It's not Steve Perry.
Arnel Pineda.
Oh, there you
go.
go.
Do I know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You know how he was discovered?
I do. Singing at a bar in the Philippines.
That's right.
Yep. Neil Sean, lead guitarist, found him.
There you go. You are the journeyman.
You know who discovered Neil Sean?
Actually, I don't think I do.
Carlos Santana. He played with him.
Oh, I think I did see something about it. I
Played
did
with him
not
at
know
Woodstock when he was 14.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
there you
man.
go.
So the initial keyboardist for Journey. Mm-hmm. His name's Greg Rowley. He's the vocals on Black Magic Woman. Did you know that?
Now, I did not know that either.
Santana's biggest hit, arguably.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how they started.
Okay. Well, look at that. You learned something like Rockumentary brought to you by Gerard Gibert.
There you go. I love it. All right, so you guys got called back for a day, and it's our understanding that this day was in an effort to maybe override some vetoes that the government applied.
The governor applied
to some. Yeah, the governor applied the veto pen to some legislation that you guys sent up, and so there is a process, as you know. If 2/3 of the members of both houses see fit to override that veto, they can do so. But that didn't happen yesterday.
It did not. But you know what? If you step back and as somebody who loves this country and loves our Republican form of government with a small r, that's the process at work. Yep. I'm not saying, you're not going to be disappointed or depending on which side you are, but that's the checks and balances that I have always talked about.
Yeah.
And, I was proud to say we passed, because I was on here talking about my civics bill, but that's the kind of things that was in my civics bill to talk about.
Okay.
And, democracy.
Just how legislation is made and so forth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
and people
I think it's important.
People think, oh my gosh, the governor vetoed this, and I'm never going to get. It's checks and balances.
Sure.
Republican democracy with a small r is messy, but you know what? That's the governor's right to do that. Our right is to come back and override if we can do that. I'm sure we'll talk about some more of that, but that's the process, and the governor has that right thanks to the Reeves v. Gunn lawsuit that was initiated a number of years ago. And if you're a fiscal conservative, then you need those checks and balances because the politics being what it is, and our founders were great at foreseeing that. So, yes, I've said this to other people too. Overriding a governor's veto is not an easy vote. In fact, it's probably one of the hardest ones. And I've
Very
been
unusual.
there, and particularly of the same party. And also, what you have is in 8 months or 9 months, you have people qualifying for election next year.
Yeah,
and so you have a lot of the politics going on. But so. Yes, but that's our right to override the veto. I think back in the day, Haley Barbour had a veto overridden back on eminent domain, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So, I mean, it happens, but it's not frequent. But you get into the debates, and that's what happened. There's reasons for why. I guess the House did what they did, which was basically a unanimous override, and then we had the Senate. And I'll just add this tidbit in there. What I think people don't necessarily appreciate: the House and the Senate are two different chambers, and if nothing else, they're different by the amount of votes. In the Senate, one vote, and by the way, there's 15 Democrats in the Senate. So when you get to 52, I guess you're dealing with about 30, 37, 35, something like that. Yeah. Okay. So, when you have a few that aren't going to vote with you, or they're not because they got to vote with their districts, one or two people can make a big difference versus the House, and that's just a matter of numbers.
Okay.
And so you get into all of those things, and you got 52 versus 122 members, and so 2/3 is if there's different members, and in the Senate there were a number of votes that weren't going to override the governor. They just weren't, and that's always been the case since I've been here. So you come in and you look at that, and that becomes part of the whole calculation.
I got you. Well, do you think, though, that perhaps tell me how this works. When you guys are recalled like that, is that a joint decision between leadership of both chambers, the lieutenant governor and the speaker? They have to agree to that?
This one was different. So normally when the session ended, it would end. We were done, and you couldn't come back until sine die.
Yep.
I'm sorry for a special session. This one, we extended on paper the session, and we suspended those deadlines, and that was passed during the regular session.
Okay.
And leadership said, in the case of a veto, I think, I think people wanted to have that option, the legislature. So, but in that in that it said the speaker and the lieutenant governor would make that decision.
Okay.
And so the speaker and the lieutenant governor make the decision as to whether we would come back or not.
Okay.
And there were vetoes done on that day, and so we were told to be back.
Gotcha. Is this something, though, you would expect maybe the lieutenant governor, the speaker, to count the votes in their respective chambers before they saw fit to call everybody back?
You know, you have to ask them about that. I think it's important to know where your votes are. But things change quickly, and I think that going in, the votes were there. Now, a lot happened yesterday, and a lot of different things changed. And as you saw, it's represented by the vote in the Senate that was attempting to override the opioid bill.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Democrats block voted. Okay, on that. And my understanding is that's not where they were on any of the bills going in. And so if you have that, I think the leadership was told they do have the votes.
Okay.
So, things move around. I think a lot of moving around happened yesterday. So yes, to your point, did the speaker and the lieutenant governor have the votes? I think they did when we were called back.
So help us out with the math here. Even if all Republicans supported overriding a veto, you need one Democrat. Is that right? Is it one or two? To achieve the supermajority, the 2/3.
Yeah, so the Senate did lose the supermajority.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so we lost that. And then yesterday we had at least one Republican not there. Okay, so that was there. So then, and all the Democrats were there.
Okay.
So, yes, it becomes a numbers game at that point. And to your point, the supermajority is no longer in the Mississippi Senate.
Yep.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Still exists in the House, not the Senate.
I'm not giving anybody credit or whatever. My point is, it's numbers, and if you're in the minority party, you do what you have at your table, and so that's something they have.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys get back, and the opioid. Explain to people that bill so they'll understand what you're talking about.
Well, okay. So the opioid settlement money got distributed through. There's a process in place, and then the legislature through the Attorney General's budget bill, because the Attorney General oversaw that process.
Yeah.
So then there were projects that were done, and there were 3 that went outside of the council that the governor had vetoed. They were very important, address mental health and other things. So that's what the House overrode the veto. It came to the Senate, and there were Republicans who voted to override, but then it didn't have the 2/3 vote.
Okay, I got you. Well, when we come back, we'll continue that discussion. I want you to explain to the folks when we come back, where did that money come from? How did we get to this money that is even available for distribution? Coming right back with Senator Brice Wiggins in the Element Wealth studio.
Family Termite is a proud
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Senator Brice Wiggins from Jackson County, chairs the Senate Judiciary A Committee. So before we went to break, Senator was asking you to explain to the folks this opioid money that we're talking about that the state has access to that is then distributed. Where'd that money come from?
Well, the short answer is it came from the national settlement with the pharmaceutical companies due to the opioid crisis.
Okay.
And so that money came to the state. Some went to a small percentage went to locals. A huge percentage came to the state through the Attorney General's office. Then last year we set up the parameters for that, and there was the Attorney General oversaw the council that took in the applications throughout the state, and then those they selected those projects and then recommended them to the legislature for appropriation. And that's what was in the Attorney General's bill. It was also in other agency bills, appropriation bills. I would submit that the Attorney General's was the biggest.
Okay.
And so then the governor, so to bring it full circle, the governor then vetoed, I think it was 3 of them. And that's what the override yesterday was brought forward.
Okay.
Because one of those was the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence. One of them was called Hope Squad, which both of those do excellent work. The governor's point was there was a process. I'm a process guy. So, we just, that was all part of it.
Okay. So, all right, so you got that. You had a bill that you personally were involved with, I believe, concerning Mississippi's youth courts.
Yes.
Right? Tell us about that.
And what happened yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, so the short or not the short version, the synopsis is that, and let me start by saying this, Gerard. If you have followed the news, literally 3 days ago, there was a youth court judge out of Bolivar County, I think it was, who was literally not just suspended, but was suspended and hammered by the judiciary because the article said, basically selling access to the courts in the youth court. One person doesn't make everybody bad. But that's an example of what we've tried to do with the Youth Court Reform Bill to bring transparency and accountability to the whole system statewide. Okay, and so we had that for 2 years. We've been working on it. During the session, we had the Youth Court Reform Bill. That on basically the last deadline day, that came up. It was a very big bill that had a lot of things. It was a huge reform. Nationwide people are looking at it. Okay, the House adjourned for whatever reason, which killed the bill. Okay, in that bill were what's called repealers, and repealers are statutes that the legislature has to come back and address. We do that in many different things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was the bill that existed to address those, and when it died by the actions of the House, then they started, in particular, and others started to realize, oh my gosh, these don't exist anymore, these statutes. So then a lot talked. So when we came back, what the House did was they sent over a suspension resolution to only address the repealers, to put those back in place. We, the Senate, and me in particular, said we're only going to do it for a year because we need to get the reform bill in place and do that and operate that for a year. So that's what they sent to us. So then we called it up on presented it, and then the Democrats block voted against it, and it failed by 1 vote in the Senate. Again, the supermajority issue. And so that's what...
So what happens now with respect to the youth courts?
Well, and so... So what happens now is, there's a little bit of discussion about that.
Yep.
So some tell us, and when I say some, I mean attorneys, it just goes to the courts to do it either individually. So that means you have 82 different youth courts doing the 82 different things, which is not the right way to do things on this issue, or the Supreme Court can step in and issue a general order and say, but these are statutes like confidentiality of records and and disclosure of items and my kids, the statewide computer system. Those are all having access that we don't have anymore. And so then you get into a constitutional thing where the courts are actually running it, and that's a separation of powers issue. Point being is that's why we needed to come back. this is why it needed to be thought through, in my opinion, before the House, in my opinion, decided to adjourn, because these are the things that were needed to be addressed.
Gotcha.
And so I know that may sound a little convoluted, but that's where we are. And I think we can get 9 months by. We can get by with 9 months and get in on January 1st and address this. That's my goal, to do that, and other people. I've also had conversations briefly with my House colleagues, and they want to address that too.
Okay.
And we were willing to do that. That's what we wanted to do yesterday. And I want to be clear, all the Republicans voted for it that I know of. The Democrats block voted against it and killed the bill because of the 2/3 deal. And so that created chaos.
Another big one that was quite contentious was is it called the Rural Transformation Health Fund, I think? Rural
Healthcare, Rural Hospital Fund, yes.
And that's something that was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
It was
kind of
how much you want to know about that? Because we didn't even take a vote yesterday.
Didn't take a vote.
Neither the House nor the Senate took a vote on it.
Well, the history of that is you guys passed this legislation that would have authorized the legislature to control, right, distribution of this money coming from the federal government for this purpose.
Correct.
And the governor vetoed it.
Correct. And I know
you guys were talking about at least taking that up to override the veto, right?
Well, it was certainly discussed. It never came up for a vote.
Okay.
And to be clear, I know it would shock you, Gerard, that there's a back and forth between the legislative and executive branch about who gets to control and spend what money.
Yeah,
okay?
shocked.
So shocked. I know that just shocks you. And so that's what, if you strip it all away, that, in my opinion, that's partly what this was about. The other part was the legislature, as we have done in the past, and as we do, and as our constitutional right, wanted transparency about where things were being spent. Richard Cross had Chairman Hobb Bryan on here, and he talked about, I'm using his term, secret meetings and all that stuff.
Yep.
So it was about, for us, the legislature, transparency and where that's going. I'm not to speak for the governor's office, but they're like, we've been given these things by the administration, and so we're going to execute that. And so it became about that. So then, yes, it was discussed, and it was a Senate bill that had the House language in it. And because it was a Senate bill, it had to start in the Senate.
Got you.
Okay, again, we're back to 2/3. The question becomes, were the votes there to advance it out of the Senate? And depending on who you talk to, as I told you off there, a lot of things changed. This is also part of the issue about when you get 174 people under the dome and they're sitting there, people talk, things change. You got people from the outside and social media and all this other stuff. So things change during the whole process.
Okay. So this is as I recall, this is like a 4-year program, I think.
Yes.
Seems like it starts this year, goes to 2030. Is what? So
and to give credit from the governor's office's standpoint, they're saying if we need it, because we want to get it out fast.
Yeah.
We want to get this out. We were given it by the Trump administration to do that. Now, we were told there's only been 1 or 2 states that handle it that way. Everybody else has the legislature involved.
Yeah.
But it was to be fast. And in the bill, there was a thing about a procurement. Some would say they would argue that delayed money getting out to the people. You know, those are all policy disputes and discussions.
Gotcha. What was unfinished in the couple of minutes we got left that you didn't get across the finish line you're going to work on next year?
Well, we've already talked about it. The first one is the youth court reform. That is, I can't begin to say how necessary that is, and if you continue to look at what's going on, that's going to be there. I think, so that's number one for me.
Okay.
We did accomplish things this year, like the 50-50 parental rights bill.
Yeah.
So as far as next year, we'll just have to see. I know things will come my way, getting the budget, continuing for my area, the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund, and getting those funds out, which we did that this year, the first time in 2 years. So that was accomplished. And there's always unfinished business.
Plus election year.
Yes, that's correct. That's right.
Senator Brice Wiggins has been our guest in the Element Well studio. Appreciate you coming in, Senator, and staying over for us. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, thank you.
Coming
All
right back.
Okay.
From Mississippi,
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert
All right, we are back.
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Oh, mama, I can hear you a-crying. You're so scared and all alone. Hangman is coming down from the gallows, and I don't have very long.
Little Sticks bumping us in to this segment. I have a friend that sent me a note, said that you're killing it with the music today, Rhino. Appreciate that. In fact, Mike from Madison says, Steely Dan, music most other bands listen to when they want to hear music. Okay. Oh, man. Good stuff. Let's see here. What else we got going on? Casey on the C Spire text line asked about school choice. Well, you know as well as I do, Casey, that your coast delegation in general are not fans. And, of course, the same is true in my county of Madison, as you well know. And then in nearby Rankin County, the same sentiment exists. And as we've talked about so many times here on this program, I think that many of those fears are grossly overblown and just inaccurate, misrepresented, misinformation. I still think we'll see that, and yet that may be what you're talking about, that we'll see that on the agenda, because I'm looking at the time now. It was at the end of the interview. For next year, the speaker's made it very clear he's not backing off on that. You know that the governor also supports these policies. It's just a problem in the Senate. And there's some pushback in the House as well. And in fairness to them, they hear from their constituents. But the constituents, again, I just feel like that their concerns are unwarranted. And the same is true, Rhino, with the data center stuff. It's just unbelievable. The fear-mongering around data centers is just mind-boggling to me. And how much misinformation there is out there. Maine, as we told you yesterday, related to data centers, is poised for their governor to sign legislation that passed their legislature that would impose a moratorium on new data center construction for at least 2 years. That's great. Send them our way. As far as I'm concerned, again, if you don't want data centers, just disconnect. Get off the internet. Put your phones down. Stop eating, driving, flying, going to the doctor, banking, consuming anything else, because every bit of that relies on the workloads housed in data centers. Of course, most people, Rhino, couldn't tell you what a data center is, right? Like, what is that exactly? They hear the term, they don't know. And the Democrats, in their disingenuous portrayal that talk about the Mississippi Democrats in their posts and reports against data centers that talked about this the other day, have a picture associated with the text itself that looks like Pittsburgh steel smeltering row in the 60s or something, with like these 100-foot smokestacks. You don't have any of those in data centers with smoke billowing out. You don't even see that anywhere in the country anymore. But in this case, you certainly won't see, like, what would be burning inside a data center or combusting, causing that output? Servers?
Maybe they think burning a CD involves fire.
That's a pretty good one. I certainly hope, Casey, that the school choice discussion is revived again next year. I still think that there's a way to do that to ensure that there's no harm done to local schools and public schools and local communities, but in fact would enhance them while giving students and families options that they currently don't have to direct the state funding associated with their student to the setting that they deem as a family is most appropriate. Don't believe as Republicans that families should be vested with decisions about their jobs and their income, their financial well-being and activities, their health, their welfare, the education. Don't we believe that? I thought that was part of individualism and limited government. It's just incredible to me how there's a conflict within the Republican Party on the part of some with respect to this, and it's just protectionism on steroids. It's what it is, more than anything else. So, yeah, she says me too. So, on the C Spire text line, peer report pretty damning of tax monies being spent by privateers. A completely different deal, by the way. Don't confuse that with school choice. This is I saw it as well. I don't know if you saw it, Rhino, but it's about the tax credits that are issued to state taxpayers for state taxes, not federal taxes, when those funds are contributed, donated to eligible private school organizations. And the peer report says that the monies are not being used for the express purpose as detailed in the law. Now, I haven't dug into that on a detailed basis at this point. I'm not sure if you have or not, Rhino. So kind of hard to offer too much opinion on that. I saw it, but I want to be clear, that's totally different than school choice. Those are just tax credits that the state provides to those who donate to private schools. And under that program, it's absolutely true that there are restrictions on how those monies can be spent. I haven't read the peer report, but they're, at least at this point, alleging that some of those monies were not spent as authorized by the program. Have to check it out. Don't know. But if they are, then okay, let's claw it back. But these are tax credits. These are not families directing the state funding that is earmarked for their particular student, that is associated with their student's public school education. That's a completely different matter. So we will certainly see what happens after the peer report that just was published concerning that. And I saw the list of some of the schools they say are receiving X amount of money, and they don't think that's being used appropriately. But again, I haven't dug into it. I don't know if you have or not, Rhino. You know what we're talking about? You've seen it?
I've seen it. I haven't dug into it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. So probably spend a little time doing that. Blake in the Delta, limited government until it comes to data centers. Then city and state governments know what's best for the citizens. Voice your concerns, but we're choosing for you. What do you mean by that, Blake? Help me understand that. So are you suggesting that all citizens are opposed to data centers? And I've made this clear before. Just disconnect. If you don't want data centers, quit using all that technology. The world would crash is the reality. We've built our world around it. And the continuous problem of humans is matching ever-increasing demand with scarce supply, right? Since the beginning of time. Since humans have inhabited the planet. So guess what humans have done to address that challenge? Innovate. Throughout the centuries. This is the next rung on that evolution. Same problem. How do we take care of all this demand? And by the way, just naturally as humans, we want to improve the quality of life. Are you saying that all this technology hasn't improved the quality of life? Well, then let's unplug all the computers down there in the Capitol complex. Let's start there and just call up several thousand people to go do all that work manually. Do that on all the businesses, on all the factory floors, and all the healthcare institutions. Just scratch all that stuff. Back to the level of technology available of 60, 70 years ago. Is that what we want?
Or do we go farther back? Do we agree with the greenies and we can't use any petroleum, so we don't have any petroleum products, so we go back to hunting whales for oil?
Yeah. I agree. That's a good point. How about pre-electricity? You could do that too. Pre-vehicles. Don't forget your vehicles are all connected to data centers as well. And there's a lot of benefit to that. How can you deny that? Super modern vehicles and their capabilities. Wonder how many wrecks and collisions are avoided now with the onboard technology. That it's all a function of information technology that made that possible. A lot. Anybody's got a vehicle that's been manufactured in the last, 5-7 years is familiar with what I'm talking about there, the collision detection avoidance. That's just one minor example of sort of stuff that's available now. That's just talking about vehicles. We got tickets to give away in the last segment. Stay with us.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Days with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
We are back in the Element Well studio. Rhino's going to give away some tickets for us. It's Chicago.
Oh, yeah, one of the best-selling bands of all time, Chicago's coming to Brandon on May 1st, and you don't want to miss it. Tickets are on sale now at the Brandon Amphitheater box office or at Ticketmaster.com. But now is your chance to win a free pair of tickets to see Chicago. All you got to do is be the 12th person to text us the phrase, "Color My World." Text the phrase "Color My World" to 601-879-4395, and you'll be the first to win a pair of free tickets to see Chicago at the Brandon Amphitheater on May 1st.
Appreciate that, Rhino. On the C Spire text line, Blake in the Delta said, I know that they had a town hall in Clarksdale about rezoning land for a data center to be built, but I don't think there's been any inquiry. Has there, Blake, or any prospective data center? I may be wrong. I just haven't heard that. I feel like I probably would. There were more in opposition than in favor. Of course, I cannot speak for citizens in cities who already have them. Maybe they enjoyed them. The rezoning was still approved. They know what's best for us, I guess. Thanks for the banner. Have a good day. So I would say, Blake, vote them out. If you're not happy with the people that made these decisions, that's how you use your voice as a citizen and your right to vote. Vote for people who will never allow data centers to be built in your area. Now, I got to point out, Clarksdale, one of the most impoverished in the entire state, in the country. Poor health outcomes as well. High unemployment rate. Lots of boarded up buildings and structures. I can't understand why you wouldn't embrace this. And the thing that's missing, and Thomas, you totally don't get it, man. You're so out in left field. It's incredible. Nobody ever said that data centers would create thousands of jobs in the data centers. Although Amazon is obligated to create a minimum of 1,000 permanent jobs at an average pay of $66K to receive some of the initial abatements they got, mainly on sales taxes and corporate income taxes. They've already got 500. I verified that this morning. 500 full-time employees. My wife works at a dress shop part-time up in Madison. Frequently, she comes home and tells me about waiting on someone who is the spouse of someone that moved here from out of state to work for Amazon and loves it here. And guess what, Rhino? You're not surprised. They bought a house, and they send their kids to school, and they shop in the stores and eat in the restaurants. And guess what that provides? Sales taxes and property taxes. Do people not get this? Do you just want to stay poor? I'm tired of being poor. I'm tired of being 50th in every economic category. We have an opportunity to transform, to get off the bottom. And people are opposed to that? And like I said, you don't want all this? Quit using the internet. Disconnect from the world. Shut it all down. I wonder if the people realize that send text and opposed to that, they're using data centers to send the text. It's unbelievable. I'm sorry, I get fired up about this but I'm glad of this. Our president gets it. He knows we cede the high ground of technical superiority in cloud services, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. We're all marching in blue pajamas, just like the communists in China are, dirt-ass poor, miserable, except for the select few in the Politburo. They're in that circle, right?
The bureaucrats.
Yeah, exactly. You think we have bureaucrats now that enrich themselves? Wait till we're under communist rule. You think I'm exaggerating and this is hyperbole? You don't think that's what they want to do? They're racing against the clock. They're racing against us to be superior to us in these technologies. And our president knows it. His inner circle is telling him. Am I exaggerating here?
No.
It's exactly what's happening. All this cryptography and cybersecurity protections we have that keep, power going to your house, the banking system running, manufacturing, elections. I know that's an important thing to a lot of people. Healthcare, they bust right through that and shut it all down. What just happened to UMMC? Right? Shut it down. You don't think it's possible to shut down the banking system in this country? The financial system? That's exactly what they're working on. And the only way we're going to prevent that is to achieve and maintain permanent, durable superiority. And this is the only way to do it. So we can ignore it and just fail as a country, or we can keep pressing forward in a responsible, ethical, safe manner. We can be good stewards of communities and environments while also pursuing this progress in these technologies, in this revolution. And I'm proud that Mississippi's playing a big role in that. We're out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.